Some of the most famous speeches in history were drafted and redrafted for months. But what if one of the most powerful speeches ever given was delivered completely on the spot in the middle of a hostile crowd? And what if the version we all know and love was actually written down 12 years after it happened? Okay, let's get into the absolute rhetorical genius of Sojourner Truth's Ain't I a Woman speech.
All right, so let's set the scene. The year is 1851. We're in Akron, Ohio, and it is a time of massive social and political upheaval in America. And what's happening is a major women's rights convention. Now, you have to remember, back then, the very idea of equality for women was, well, it was radical. So the stakes for this meeting were incredibly high.
But the atmosphere is anything but calm. It's actually really tense because the convention has drawn a crowd of protesters. We're talking men, including local ministers, who are there to shout, to argue, and to do everything they can to disrupt the proceedings. And then, out of all that chaos, a single powerful figure stands up to speak. It's Sojourner Truth, a farmer slave who had escaped to freedom. And get this, she has no notes, no prepared remarks, nothing. She is about to respond to the hecklers in real time. So just try to picture that. Sojourner Truth, a known abolitionist and a fierce advocate for women, stepping right into the lion's den. She's about to face this angry crowd and just dismantle their arguments, one by one. First up on her list, she goes right after the most common argument of the day, the idea that women were just too fragile, too weak, too delicate to deserve the same rights as men.
I mean, this was the prevailing wisdom back then. The quote-unquote logic was that women needed to be protected, not empowered, because they were physically inferior. It was the go-to excuse to keep women out of politics, out of the workforce, out of public life altogether.
Now, Truth doesn't come back with some abstract philosophical counterargument. No, she uses something so much more powerful, the undeniable proof of her own life. She starts listing off all the backbreaking labor she's done, stuff that was considered exclusively man's work. And then she hits them with that killer rhetorical question. It is such a direct challenge. She's not just saying she's as strong as a man, she's practically daring any man in the room to prove he's stronger than her. And just like that, the entire argument about female frailty just falls apart. So she's completely shattered the argument about physical strength. Now she pivots to the second big argument used against women, the idea that they were intellectually inferior. And yeah, this line of thinking was just as demeaning. The argument was basically that women didn't have the mental horsepower to understand politics or wield power. Giving them rights, in their view, would be like giving a child a loaded weapon. But again, instead of getting into some long, complicated debate, she just breaks it down with this simple, brilliant analogy that anyone can get. She says, all right, let's just say you're right for a minute. Let's say a woman's mind is a pint and a man's mind is a quart. And that's the genius of it. With one simple question, she exposes how completely absurd their logic is. Even if men have more capacity, so what? Why would that be a reason to deny women the right to fill their own cup? It's witty, it's disarming, and it is logically airtight. But Truth saves her most powerful weapon for last. See, in the 19th century, the Bible was constantly used as the ultimate authority to keep women in their place. So Truth, a deeply devout Christian herself, decides to meet them on their own turf. A favorite argument from her opponents was the story of Eve, blaming the first woman for all of humanity's problems. But Truth's response is just brilliant. She doesn't deny the story. Instead, she agrees with their premise and then flips it into a call to action. It's a stunning bit of rhetorical judo. And she doesn't stop there. She moves from the Old Testament right into the New. She brings up the central figure of their faith, Jesus Christ, and reminds the whole crowd of the sacred and essential part a woman played in his very existence. And, with that sharp, direct question, she challenges the very foundation of male superiority within their own religious beliefs. In the story of Jesus' birth, what was man's role? And the question just hangs there in the air, completely unanswered. And now we get to her incredible conclusion, where she pulls all of these different threads together into one final striking image. This is her verdict. This is her final judgment on the state of things. The old power structure, represented by the white man, is getting squeezed. The abolitionist movement is coming at him from one side, and the women's rights movement is coming at him from the other. He's trapped, with pressure building from every direction.
So, when you break it all down, what made this impromptu speech so unbelievably effective? Well, we saw it all. She used her own life as undeniable proof of her strength. She used simple analogies like the pint and the quart to make complicated ideas feel obvious. She masterfully co opted the Bible, her opponent's own weapon, and turned it against them. And she just kept asking these sharp, rhetorical questions to force the crowd to confront their own flawed logic. It was truly a masterclass in persuasion.
Which kind of leaves us with one final big question. Sojourner Truth couldn't read or write. She gave this world-changing speech completely off the cuff. And yet, here we are, centuries later, still talking about it. So what is it? What gives a single voice, in a single moment of courage, the incredible power to resonate across generations?